Okay, so this is for the Ohm's Law lab. The question we're asking in this one is, what is the relationship between voltage, current, and resistance in a circuit? You know what? You guys already know the answer to this. We've been talking about Ohm's Law since the beginning, right? So we already know that voltage is equal to current times resistance, but we haven't really seen really direct proof of that yet. And that's what we're going to get in this lab. So in our conclusion, when we're answering this question, we should be able to have a lot of evidence to point to support that this is Ohm's law, describing that relationship. What's different about this lab is a lot of the equipment we're going to be using, right? So it's shown here. We are using a current probe. We are using a voltage probe. We're using a bulb, a battery. All that is old news. What's new is the potentiometer. And this is going to be hooked to a circuit board. Okay, now there's other stuff on that circuit board too. There's actually some bulbs on it, there's batteries on it, and you can use those instead of the ones we've been using. But if that's too confusing, just use the same things we've been using this whole time, all right? So we'll show you how this equipment works next. Okay, so this is the circuit board that we're going to be using because it has a potentiometer on it. The potentiometer is a variable resistor, so we can actually change the value of its resistance. And here's what it actually looks like, right? We're going to use this resistor. We're going to use, here's a 10 ohm resistor. It's got these bands around it. We'll show you how we put this in place later on. So we've already got two batteries on here. You can use those, or you can use the kind that we've already used that have the two ends you can clip onto. So you can just ignore those if you want. We also have three bulbs here. They're labeled ABC. You can use those, or you can just use one in the same holders that we've been using if these are too confusing for you. Something to notice about here, there's these coils that come out, right? So if we do want to use these batteries, we would hook one of our wires kind of in between it. Now these are connected underneath to, and they kind of show those connections, right? They're connected to that battery. And so those connections are, it's all sort of soldered in part of the board. So the the positive and the negative ends of the battery are really connected underneath to this and this. So I could hook up, these would be considered the two ends of the battery, right? Where there's a positive and there's a negative side to it. Well, something similar is happening here at the potentiometer. There's actually three different spots here. And if you take a look at your diagram, notice that we're going to be hooking up one of our wires, we're going to hook up the positive side to the middle of that. And then the other side is going to go to the positive side of our current probe. So like the red wire from the current probe would go onto that. That means these two coils of wires are what we want to hook them onto. Okay, now inside the circuit, they're going to be connected to this thing. So this is a little knob that you can turn. If I turn it one way, it's going to increase resistance. If I turn it the other, it's going to decrease it. And we should be able to observe that on the graphs that we're going to create. Okay, now we want to see what is the software that we're going to be using. So we're still using Data Studio, what we've always used. We're going to go to the Science ECHS Vault. It's this folder over here. We're going to open up physics. And the first file we're looking for is one that's called Ohm's Law, in parentheses, 2 graphs. So I'll open up that one. I've already got it open here. And we can see that there's two graphs, much like what we've seen before. There's one that's got voltage on the y-axis over time on the, voltage on the y with time on the x. The other one has current on the y and time on the x. So we're going to see what happens with both the current and voltage in real time. So we can observe that. Later on, we're going to use another file called Ohm's Law, voltage versus current. And this places both of those, voltage and current, on kind of cross axes here. So voltage is on the y and current is on the x. This means we're not seeing what happens at different points in time, but we are going to be graphing what happens at different points in time. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start, and we'll see that as I turn the knob, some points start showing up. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. When you do it, you're going to have more points than this, but this is just to show you one of the features. We're also going to be using something we call linear fit. So if I go up here where it says fit, click down, and if I hit linear fit, this is something we've used in previous labs like our Newton's Law lab. This one tells us it's going to fit a line of best fit to it.
And it tells us some information about that line, like what is the slope of the line? That's the thing we're most interested in here. Here it tells me the slope is 2.27. Now we got to think about what slope means if I've got a y-axis of voltage and an x-axis of current. Right? Remember that slope is calculated using rise over run. That's going to be important for us to remember.